It's Radio Free 501c, the podcast of Road Tulips Consulting. We're here with Season 7. So glad you're joining us. I'm your host, Cecilia Supp, CAEACNP, and I'm so glad you're here for this exciting year of so many great topics, so don't forget to subscribe. This episode is supported by USAE News, the weekly community newspaper of Association CVBs and hotels. Learn more about USAE News at usaenews.com. We're joined by another first-time guest, Todd McElwee, and he is giving new meaning to the phrase, a word from our sponsor. He's taking us behind the scenes at USAE News. It's Monday, April 21st, 2025. It's time for episode 282. Hey everybody, it's Monday, April 21st, and I am very pleased to welcome Todd McElwee from USAE News, because they are the supporter of this episode every month at Radio Free 501c. So I'm really excited to actually have someone from USAE News here today. And our topic is behind the scenes at USAE News. But before we dive into the topic, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to our global audience, wherever you may be. And if you haven't followed or subscribed to Radio Free 501c yet, please take a moment and do that, because you don't want to miss any of these kind of great conversations. It's not often you get to be behind the scenes, especially at an iconic publication like USAE News. So Todd, welcome to the show. Would you like to say hello to the audience and tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I am Todd McElwee. I am the iconic associate publisher of the iconic industry publication USAE. I am a Leo. No, I'm just kidding. I've been with USAE for more than a dozen years, and we'll take you as behind the scenes, I guess, as we can. There's lots of skeletons in closets, and I know where all the bodies are buried. I'm being a little facetious, but thank you so much for having me today.
You are welcome, and I'm excited to have you here because I always refer to your paper, your publication, as the paper of record for the association industry. So what are some of the kinds of things that USAE really focuses on covering?
So I think USAE's main objective, it sounds kind of silly to say, is covering the news. That don't do a lot of features. Like, I always use this example, that if a new hotel is opening, we're not going to write about the spa or the pool or, the thread count of the sheets. We're going to focus more on who actually owns the hotel, what taxes, if taxes help paid for it, zoning, like not the boring stuff. We're the business end of the association industry news media, if you will. I think we're the newsiest of all the publications, so that's what we're focused on. We're not the New York Times, but as they are the paper of record for the entire country, it's more nuts and bolts stuff than a lot of fluff.
Well, I don't know. I think some of the headlines are kind of interesting at USAE News.
Well, I don't think it needs to be mutually exclusive, that it's just a straight AP news story or something like that. That one of the beauties of USAE, and I think the reason why it has been so successful and around for so long, is because there is a personality to it, that we have relationships with people in this industry. And so when you're familiar with people, you're able to better tell their stories, whether they like it or not, sometimes as well.
I was going to say, Ross Heller, the founder
Yes.
of USAE, I got to ride with you and Ross last year in 2024 to the ASAE conference. And boy, he told some stories. So
Ross, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, because you mentioned you're not going to report the thread counts of the sheets, but sometimes people know who's like in the sheets, if you will, doing things behind the scenes. There's some notoriety that goes on in the association management profession, definitely. But actually, we do a lot of good. But you and I got to ride out there in what I refer to as the USAE caravan last year. Yeah. And then we went our separate ways, and you and the USAE team went off to the conference and did your thing, and I went and did my thing. So what do you do at a conference? You cover lots of conferences, you go to lots of meetings in the association area. So like when you go to a major conference like ASAE annual, what sort of activities do you participate in?
So there is news gathering, there's networking. Um, we often produce on-site issues. So I'll just give you an example. So we arrived at ASAE last year on, I think, Saturday afternoon, and the opening reception was that night. So we go to the opening reception, we take lots of photos. The next day is the opening general session and other events. We cover the opening general session. We most of the time do not cover individual educational sessions, just simply for they're so niche, that there's going to be something about association insurance or, you know, integrating AI into the C-suite, however you want to say it, that it doesn't present the fullest picture of the audience. At ASAE or bigger shows like IMAX, if they have bigger trade shows, we always try to get some type of we used to call it Talk the Trade Show story, where we would go up and ask people, how do you find the show? What do you like? How's the foot traffic? The only issue with that is it was always the same story. It's great. It's great to be back. It's great to see everybody. We're getting a lot of great people. Houston, Cleveland, wherever is great. What a great convention center. So we started switching that up to ask more of I don't want to say provocative question, but something along the lines of like at ASAE the other year. Again, not provocative. This isn't Roe v. Wade. How do you feel about it? But like, do you think ASAE should turn into a hosted buyer show? Questions along those lines. Or after the pandemic, I forget what the first show back, what, excuse me, should we be here? Like questions along those lines to do a little, find something more interesting. We always try to talk to the chairman, the CEO, basically those things to provide a broad picture of the conference, but we don't report on every little detail because honestly, a lot of times leading up to a major conference like ASAE, I'll do 6 or 7 stories. I'll do one on what their charity is. I'll do one on their outings in the city. I'll do one on their social events. First timers, you name it. I've written stories about convince your boss, the letters to convince your boss. So that's essentially how we cover the conference. We put out show dailies, sometimes in print, sometimes just digitally, depending where we are. And that's the major things. I would like to expand it to include more video, more multimedia efforts. So hopefully those days are coming.
Well, so you mentioned earlier about going to a lot of different conferences like ASAE and IMAX. And so do you get invited to those conferences or do you just register and as press and attend?
Um, it's a little bit of both. It's mostly, if not even an like an official invitation, like we've been going for so long and have participated in them in so many different ways that from hosting a booth to hosting a reception, that was before my time, to hosting receptions to, no, I don't think anybody's ever, well, I've actually participated as a speaker at association forum events when we used to partner with them on the 40 under 40 program. So it's not an official invitation most of the times, but it's, I'll get an email from the PR person saying, hey, registration's open, here's the code. And that's
Oh,
what we do.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me. So like if any association invited you to their annual conference, would you go?
I would look at it. A lot of it depends on the schedule, how we would cover it, what type of access or what they would want us to cover at it. Like we've been told at some events that you have to produce so many stories for us or something, and that's not something that we do.
Oh,
So I don't want to say any association, but if anyone invites me, it's something I look at. Like I basically can, we get a fair amount of requests to go on fam trips, come to this reception or this 1 day conference in DC, and some of them we make it to and some of them we don't. And a lot of the times, if we don't make it to it, we'll still write about it or still promote it. I often find that writing about the event before it happens is more valuable than writing about it after it happens for some of the smaller events, simply because maybe we can drive a little bit of interest in it, be it digitally or in-person attendance. And for a smaller event where it's only a session, there are times when it's hard to really tell the story about what happened, because you can kind of write about the keynote and you can kind of write about the feel, but if there's not that much going on, there's just not, for lack of a better term, that much going on in the story, if you get my drift. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's got to be a hook.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
If only I was a professional journalist and could have thought of something like
Don't worry, Todd. I got you covered. So you also mentioned earlier, and this is actually kind of the fun conversations. And actually Ross Heller was on an episode last year and he sort of told a few stories without getting us into any legal hot water.
right,
So
right, right.
but you mentioned that because USAE has been covering the association industry for so many decades, since the
Mhm.
1980s, you all know a lot of people, you all have a lot of connections. So you know there might be a few skeletons buried here and there, or some things that maybe we just choose not to talk about in public. And without naming names, is there something that you have found very interesting that is kind of a skeleton in a closet, or something that we just try not to talk about?
Well, first, I think we should really drive your listeners up, and we should definitely name names, and we should definitely tag these people online and their associations and their parents if we can find them too. So, um, absolutely, there's been a lot of I like the word scuttlebutt and gossip over the years concerning different circumstances. Right around the time I started in 2012, a CEO left one of the major associations and just kind of out, I'm gone. There wasn't a whole lot of run up to it, if I remember correctly. And the word that we had received from other people was it was due to pending sexual harassment, possibly lawsuits or something like that. Nothing ever came of it. And this person has since gotten other jobs in the industry. So, if there is any validity to that, I'm not sure, but it happened fairly quickly. This was a good, desirable job, and it wasn't like they were leaving for another job. Around the same time, another industry leader left a prominent job and no, basically just said they were burned out, but they had only been there, it wasn't a long time at all. And what I had gotten talking to people was that they were just going to be fired. Like nobody in their leadership. I don't know if they didn't like them. They didn't like the job they were doing. And that was a person that I spoke with the first person a few times, but never got anywhere with them. I spoke with the other person multiple times, and they never said it exactly, but you could kind of tell. And it was sad. There was a real sadness in it that they weren't going to be able to do this job because they really seemed to want to do it. So,
Wow. Yeah,
yes.
I think there's a lot of scandal around how boards interact with their chief staff executives,
Oh, yeah.
because sometimes the chief staff executive is behaving badly, and that could be another podcast episode if you want to
Yeah.
come back and talk about that. CSE's behaving badly. There's sexual harassment. I've heard stories from some of my friends and colleagues about chief staff executives who embezzled and yet somehow got to keep their job. Just all kinds of crazy things like that. Um, but that's not really the heart of what you do at USAE, although it is fun to talk about over cocktails. So, what
Yeah.
is your favorite kind of story to cover?
Whew. I've never really thought about that. My favorite type of story to cover. I really enjoy it when an association or an organization is launching something that they think is going to be transformative.
Mhm.
Not only for their organization, but for, I hate to say society and be that Pollyanna-ish, but like something that they see is going to affect the greater good, not just their membership. I really have enjoyed conversations the past few years that we've had in the industry around topics like race and gender and how the changes that need to be affected there. And speaking with people who aren't just paying it lip service, but actually doing it. I think those types of stories are great. Yeah, those are my favorite things. Like when you see something that's going to produce tangible results, those are my
Hmm.
favorite things.
Yeah,
And
or that they hope to, they come in
that
with
they
all
hope to.
the
Thank you.
excitement of that. So, and that's the sort of thing that maybe you might cover in the acclaim publication that USAE also offers for special events and maybe celebrating retirements. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, sure. A few years ago, we started, I call it a bespoke publication. It's called Acclaim Accolade. And
Mhm.
it's meant as a commemoration or a promotion. So I'll give you an example. Um, when Butch Spearden retired from Nashville,
Mhm.
we did a celebratory issue about his retirement that we included, memories, photos, antidotes, and I say antidotes. Yeah, nobody was sick. We didn't give anybody. I do that all the time.
Right, antidotes.
I do
Okay.
that, and I can't spell the word Pennsylvania. I don't know why. Um, and for that, we sold ads to local partners, everyone from the airport to the Nashville Predators, and we raised however much money, and then we donated to a charity of his choice in Nashville. We did a similar one for the National Coalition of Black Meeting Professionals for their 40th, not their 40th, their 30th anniversary, I believe. I'm sorry, I get all these anniversaries mixed up. But yeah, absolutely. So like if X association was launched in this program and it's something they really wanted to promote and raise some money at, that we would do it for free if they wanted to and sell ads and generate revenue that way and then donate a portion of it back to that particular project or a charity they wanted to work for, or they can purchase it and sell their own ads or not sell ads, and then it can be distributed however they want. It's in print, it's digital. We've done them on site at conferences. We've done them at dinners, galas. We did one at the EIC 75th last year. So yeah, 100%. And it's a good way to present the message you want to present solely focused on that. Yeah. It's a little
That's
old.
great.
It's still print too, but people like that. It's like, I don't think you go to a wedding and you get a QR code to scan the event, you know. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great offering, and I know other companies offer similar sorts of things, but I think
Mhm.
getting it from USAE would be really great just because of the reputation of the company in our industry. And we still have some time to talk about your experiences at USAE
Okay.
and a lot of the different people you've met. So, is there any particular incident that sticks out for you over your 12 years with the company? Like, did somebody famous spill a drink on you, or some well-known board member, trip at a reception or something? I mean, is there anything unusual like that that stands out in your experience?
So it actually happened to me. Sorry for being so narcissistic. It actually happened to me. It happened at PCMA in January in Houston. I arrived to Houston a little late to register. Um, so I go to the hotel and I was within walking distance of the convention center where the reception was, the opening reception, and registrations closed because it was, we'll say 8 o'clock at night. Okay. So I just walk into the convention center figuring if I have, if someone from PCMA stops me, I literally have emails from them and I know it, them all. Anyways, and I'm wearing like a little V-neck sweater and a shirt like this, look respectable. And I go around, start talking to people and getting photos like I always do. Hi, it's the same spiel every time. Hi, I'm Todd McElwee from USAE. If I don't know them, would you mind if I got your photos, please? Most people say, sure. The biggest question is, can we hold our drinks or should we put our drinks down? Um, So I go and do that. And then I go and I stand at a little high top cocktail table, if you will. And I remember this. I was eating a Southwestern lobster roll. It doesn't sound like it should work, but it actually does. And a Houston police officer comes over to me and he says, hello, sir, do you have your badge? And I say, no. And I explain what happened. And he said, well, a young woman just came over to me and said this weird man is going around taking photos of everybody. And I started to laugh, and the police officer was so nice. And I explained who I was. And he basically I showed him an email from PCMA, and he basically looked at me and he just kind of laughed and he said, I didn't think you were an international terrorist. I just had to come over and ask. So I called my bosses and told them, and they just thought it was great. And we all agreed it would have been such a better story, though, if I had been arrested and like booted.
It definitely.
So that's one that comes to mind. Other than that, no, I haven't really had, you know, any type of like funny blooper real situation, unfortunately. I shouldn't say unfortunately, that's unkind, but with somebody from the industry. No, I mean, honestly, I cannot think of anything. Yeah, wow.
Wow, interesting. Wow, so you guys keep it very professional then when you go to conferences, unlike
Or
some of
maybe
us who hit the
maybe I'm
parties.
just not in the right circles or not paying enough attention. Well, I'm just standing all by myself at cocktail tables eating lobster rolls, I'm not actually involving myself in anything. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I don't do it so much anymore, but like when I went to ASAE annual in the past, I had a couple of friends and we would hit like as many parties on party night, which is Sunday
Yeah.
night. And we'd
Yeah.
go like 5, 6 parties and,
Yeah.
see what we could get involved in or whatever. But nothing too off the wall. There was the time I danced with a hooker, but
Oh, let's hear that
yeah,
story.
yeah, see that kind of stuff never makes it in USAE. Well, it was not in 2022, but the previous time ASAE had the conference in Nashville, and my
Okay.
friend Lisa and I went out because she was hungry. As unfortunately, yeah, ASAE. This is more of a suggestion than a complaint. We really need more substantive food at our receptions. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So anyway, my friend Lisa was still really hungry, and she said, "I heard there's this great place down the street that has good tater tots." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'll go with you." So we go get her some tater tots. We're sitting at the bar. We start talking to this young woman, and she was getting really drunk. And it turned out, we did not know it at the time. Turned out she was a hooker, and she was there trying to meet men, and so we were trying to get her not to go with this guy and just hang out with us. But she I was out on the dance floor just listening to the band because of course it's Nashville, every place has a band
Right.
playing, not recorded
Right.
music. And she just came over and grabbed me and started dancing with me. So I'm like, okay, so I was dancing with a hooker, and Lisa has the photographic evidence in case she ever needs to blackmail me someday in the future. So I try to stay on her good side.
I
But,
was, I
and
was
then we
dancing the hooker is a great country song.
Yeah, it's like and it was, you're right. It was downtown Nashville. It was late on a Saturday night. I'm not
There
gonna
we
sing. I
go.
can't sing. I love to sing, but I'm not good at it. But yeah, it could totally be a country song. And I had to go home with the hooker. But it was a funny story at the airport too, because we were standing in line on the way home, going through security, and I was like 3 people behind actually getting to go through the metal detector. And this young woman comes in who had been at the conference, and she came in. She's like 6 people behind me. I had the best time in Nashville. Nobody had more fun in Nashville than I did. I had a great time. And I just turned around and said, I danced with a hooker. And she said, You win. So
Yeah, there's no real retort to that, is it? It's
there's
like,
really not. I know. I was
no,
like, well, I danced
I
with a
can't.
hooker. What are you going to do? And I told that story in a networking group one time, and somebody said, You have the best stories. And I'm
That's
just
that's
like,
a
Yeah,
tremendous
okay.
story. That's a
But
tremendous story.
yeah, so maybe Todd, next time you go to a conference and I'm there, maybe you should follow me around for a while because
We'll see what we could find. A lady of the night somewhere,
that's
right?
right. It's like we could do that. Or there's like last year when I went and I had to be in my wheelchair, um, and I got stuck in the sidewalk. So I had just gotten there on Saturday. You guys had just dropped me off, and I got in my hotel room, got all settled, go wheel myself downstairs, and they had told me how to go out the other side of the hotel, and you can go over to the place where the AWTC reception is. I'm like, great. Right after I got out of the hotel, I got stuck in the sidewalk. There was a big crack, could not get my wheelchair out of the sidewalk. And I'm sitting on the sidewalk in my wheelchair right next to a bunch of people sitting outside at a cafe eating who were just watching me like I'm part of the show or whatever. And I'm like, God,
Yeah.
yeah, now I'm going to get my wheelchair here. These two really nice guys, Georgie and William, came up behind me and they said, Oh, can we help you? Do you need some assistance? And I was like, Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. They ended up, they were just two guys from Cleveland out for Saturday night, having a good time. And I will always remember them because they pushed me all the way to the reception, shook
Wow.
my hand and said, have a good evening. And that's Cleveland for you folks. And I always judge a city by its drunks. So they were out drinking, they already had a couple of drinks, and they were just lovely people and took time out of their evening to help me. So I always appreciated that. And I wrote about them in my blog too last year. So yeah, so there's always lots of interesting things going on. Although I think the funniest thing was I showed up at the AWTC reception in my wheelchair and I said to Jill Treby, Hey, I'm here for my shift. And her response was, You signed up for a shift? I was like, well, yeah, what else am I going to do? I'm just sitting here, right?
Right.
But she was just stunned because I was in a wheelchair. I'm like, I'm a wheelchair, I can still like welcome people. But she's
Yeah.
like, no, it's fine, we got enough. So you should
Yeah.
just follow me around with a camera and
I
then
no,
you're
I 100% will do that. I 100% will do
right.
that.
Because you never know what I'm gonna get into.
Yeah, I don't know if we should bring like bail money or I don't think we need to be armed necessarily.
No, but
That heavily. Maybe a
yeah.
dog, maybe like a large dog could help us too. Just a bit. I do always try to, whenever I go to a city, venture away from the convention area, the downtown area. Like in Cleveland, I left the conference and then went to a brewery a few miles down the road that was right on the lake. And then I got a one of those Segways, or just like the little Lime scooters or whatever, and rode it
Mhm.
all the way back through the city to our hotel by the Cleveland Clinic, which I thought's a cool way to see a city. So,
Wow, that's cool. See, I would
yeah.
probably fall off one of those if I stayed on it too long.
Luckily, most of the trip was just on a path right next to, not next to the lake, but overlooking the lake. It got a little hairy when I got downtown, and then out of downtown, and the streets and sidewalks aren't the best, and I'm kind of shaking a little bit. But yeah, but no, next time you and I segways around this, they're not segways. Segways are those things that you
There's
stick.
those like Lime
Yeah,
scooters,
yeah,
the
thank
electric
you.
scooters. I know what
Yeah,
you're talking
next time
about.
we'll see who, what, where we can find in this,
Yeah,
around
that would be
Los
fun. We should do that. The tour, the
Angeles.
USAE electric scooter tour. It sounds
Right.
like an album right there. That sounds like a record
The
album. Yeah.
USA Electric, like from the late 70s, I would think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me
Or it
ask
sounds like a bad kids show from the late 70s, like a bad animated kids show. It's
Oh
let's
yeah.
do the
Who would
tour.
be the main character though? That would be kind of
We need a big puppet. I think we
yeah,
need
we
a big
definitely need a big
yeah.
puppet.
So
Okay, so that'll be like we'll have to that we'll work on that. That's our assignment.
okay, fair enough.
But before we wrap up, I want to ask you a question.
Hmm.
We've been having fun talking about all the silly stuff that goes on, but USAE has been a big part of the association profession, like I said earlier, for decades. Where do you see USAE going in the future? Do you think it will go completely digital? Do you think you'll continue your combination of print and digital? And do you think USAE needs to change its focus at all? And that could be no, we don't, but I'm just curious. Do you think USAE needs to change something that it's doing?
I don't necessarily think we need to change our focus. I think what has made USC successful, kind of what I said earlier, is that we are so focused on the news and that we don't always we support the industry, but we're not a cheerleader for
Mhm.
it. And I think sometimes people in the industry want us to be a cheerleader in it, but that just wouldn't work. That just wouldn't work. There are too many stories out there that need to be told. I don't want to sound so like I'm on a high horse that people need to be held accountable and stuff because we're not reporting on war crimes or awful, awful things. Like sometimes, like I've written numerous murder stories and lawsuits and people being fired for embezzlement, like you said, and sexual harassment firings and all sorts of stuff. Um, but most of it is fairly positive. But you can't expect us to write the positive stuff and then not write the unflattering stuff as well. And obviously, we're never going to cross like personal lines or anything like that. It has to affect your organization. What I think we need, I know we need to work on, and we are going to work on, we are working on, I should say, is how we deliver it. We still get a good response to our monthly print edition. People still like print magazines, print newspapers every once in a while. I don't think they want it every week. I don't think they want it every day. But I think delivering it to them once a month or acclaim issues shows some type of special value. It's a good way to kind of mark an occasion, or like in our monthly print edition, every month we do an interview and we let an industry member write a column in it. And I think that's appropriate that those go into our print edition. It goes out digitally as well. We need to, and we are becoming more nimble online with the various social media. We're a little bit behind the curve on that, but catching up, and I have a lot of confidence that we will catch up with that. So the delivery is needs to be altered, needs to, I hate saying gear, needs to be revised a little bit, but the content I think needs to stay the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, that's great to hear. I'm glad because I don't remember not knowing about USAE
Hmm.
my entire career. And so I'm always surprised when I meet people who say, "Oh, I don't think I'm familiar with that." But then I'm always really excited when people say, "Oh, hey, I saw your ad in USAE."
Wonderful.
People will tell me that when I put ads in. So, it's getting out there. People are out there talking about it. I also, because of the news portion, I also recommend it as a resource in my courses in my education program. I include that and say, check out USAE News because a lot of what we do is help people get ready for the CAE exam. And so a
Oh,
lot of the news are scenarios, like they could be scenarios on the exam. So we tell people, read USAE, get the news, know what's going on. And I've always thought it was a great publication and was really one time many years ago, it was probably before you even joined the team at USAE. I was the chair of the communications section council, and a reporter from USAE called to get a comment from me about ASAE. So that was actually kind of exciting for me. And I may still have that article in my archive somewhere.
that's cool. That's awesome. Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully a young lady from or that visited Houston hears this podcast and becomes aware of what USAE is. So Houston's finest don't try to detain me the next time I'm in their fair city. But we'll see. We'll see. No, that's very kind of what you say. It's not, I don't want to say it's something that it's our obligation, it's our sworn oath. Do you know what I mean? To report the news and be the record keeper of the association industry. But you do hear a lot of stories from people about, I remember when I was in USAE X number of years ago, or I remember when you wrote about this, or unfortunately, a lot of people, you wrote, I'll hear months, not years later, you wrote a very nice obituary for this person, and we appreciate that. So it is a responsibility. It's fun though too, because as you said, it's not the largest industry in the world. And you tend to see the same people over and over again in all the conferences. So you do develop relationships with them. And when someone appreciates what you do and they know you appreciate what they're doing, it's pretty rewarding.
That's great. Well, Todd, this has been great. I'm so glad to actually have someone from USAE on the podcast since you guys are such great supporters of Radio Free 501c. And you've shared some really good tips that associations can use for their own publications and how they connect with people. So at the end of every episode, I like to ask my guest, what's the one thought you'd like the audience to take away today? And how can they get in touch with you so they can invite you to all their fabulous events so you can cover it?
I think I would like people to take away that this sounds really weird. It's okay to talk to us. That some people are afraid to talk to us because we're not because we do report things that people don't want to hear, but that it's always going to be fair. And again, most of it, you're not committing a capital crime or nothing. Is some mistakes happen, but it's the old cliche that the cover-up's always worse than the crime. And so it looks worse when we're talking in the paper or we're writing a story in the paper, excuse me, and X person was not available to comment. But then there's all this stuff. So we're going to give you a fair shake, and we're just as happy to talk to you if something's going really well as when something's going really badly. And we don't obviously ever want anything to go bad. I take no joy in reporting those type of stories. I'm not a gotcha journalist. That has no appeal for me whatsoever, because any type of notoriety one may get from that it's fleeting. It's gone. It's over the next day. But so could be the relationship that you could build. So yeah, we're here to talk and figure out the best way for everyone to move forward.
Oh, that's great. And I think that's a great closing thought because I think you give everybody a fair shake at USAE.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
the goal, to be fair and to be accurate. That's the goal.
And if all journalists were fair and accurate, the world would probably be a little easier to navigate. So
Maybe.
that's great. Well, Todd, thanks for joining me
This
this
has been a
week.
joy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, me too. It's been great. Well, we have to go rogue for now, but we'll be back next time with another exciting episode with more first-time guests like Todd having these fun conversations. So again, if you haven't followed or subscribed yet, please take a moment and do that because you don't want to miss any of these great conversations we're having this year. If you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting and how we can help your organization bloom outside the box, check out our website, roguetulips.com, and then let's have a conversation. Thanks for joining us this week for this conversation with Todd McElwee of USAE News. And on behalf of Todd and myself, we'll see you next time. That's it for this week. I hope you really loved this episode as much as I did. Thanks for listening. Learn more about how our experience and knowledge at Rogue Tulips can give your organization the strategic edge to reach its goals. Check out our website at roguetulips.com. We'd love to talk with you and see how we can work together. Thanks.